Well, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, and Dalton Wasserman here with you guys to preview Week 16 in the NFL. No bye weeks once again. There's no more bye weeks for the rest of the season. We got a couple of games with a lot of playoff implications on the line. A couple of games with some playoff implications on the line. And other games, Dalton, well, draft implications on the line, I should say. They don't have anything to do with the playoffs, and whoever wins and loses, obviously the draft position changes. How you doing, my friend?
We're good. You get to that tense part of the year, right? Mid to late December football, right? You got a lot of these games with team seasons on the line. And for me especially, I mean, you're talking about Week 16 in the NFL with so much on the line. College football playoffs starting this Friday with Alabama, Oklahoma. That's going to be a lot of fun along with the rest of the games. So you get to that part where every game feels like, at least all the games that still matter, feel like they have the highest of tension about them.
Yeah, we got NFL games on Saturday this week as well. So it's a full slate of football no matter how you slice it. I haven't even sat down to put together my weekend plans of like all the games that are going on. I mean, Thursday night football is unbelievable anyways. We're going to get to that in a second with the Rams and the Seahawks, but we start off with that. Then we get the college football playoff. It's going to be a jam-packed week, man. I'm very, very excited. I got a lead to keep chipping into here on this show because you were up, 5 games on me last week? Now you're only up 3 games, so I got 2 on you. I finished the week last week 10-6 in my predictions. You were 8-8 overall. So we're chipping away. If the Dolphins could have done it, Dolphins could have got that win on Monday night, we'd be within striking distance here. Hey, maybe we still are. I'm excited to get to this one though, because there's a lot of games that are going to be a lot of fun to preview. But we got to start with Thursday Night Football. What might be the game of the week here as the first game of Week 16? And it's the rematch here between the Rams and the Seahawks. The Rams got the better of the Seahawks last time they faced off when they were in LA. They beat them by 2 points, but it felt like they kind of barely hung on to beat them by 2 points there. So, Dalton, these are 2 of the best teams in the NFL, teams that have, number 1 overall seed aspirations, NFC Championship game aspirations, Super Bowl aspirations. Do you want to talk about the Seahawks or the Rams for this game?
We're going to talk about Sam Darnold and really the entire Seahawks offense. And that game was so even, and it came down to the bitter end with just a missed field goal at the end deciding it. And really the aftermath of that game is the struggles that we've seen from Sam Darnold within that game with the 4 interceptions and in the 4 games after that where the Seahawks offense just has not been as consistent. And when I go back and watch Darnold's last 5 games, I think one of the themes to me with this offense is it's really designed to beat single high coverages, right? You talk about having multiple tight ends on the field. You're talking about taking deep play action shots to guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Darnold was so good throwing the deep ball early in the season. The problem is they don't seem to have a counterpunch right now when teams get in too high safety coverages, right? Quarters, cover 2, things like that. Sam Darnold against too high coverages this year has a 70.2 passing grade, and really middle of the pack in the NFL. And in the last 5 games, a 44.6 passing grade, one of the worst marks in the NFL. The Rams, and they use too high coverages as much as anybody, a top 5 amount of plays in too high in football this season. First in coverage grade, first in EPA per play allowed, the lowest EPA per play allowed. And I think there's multiple angles of this. Number 1 is Sam Darnold and taking away the deep ball. The Rams have mostly done a really nice job of doing that. You have to attack them underneath and create after the catch if you're going to beat them. And 2, the Seattle run game has been a problem, and it's going to be harsh conditions out there in Seattle tomorrow night. There's going to be harsh weather out there, whether it's rain or snow, it's windy, it's going to be cold, and the Seahawks are going to have to find a way to run the football, okay? These are the 2 best offenses in the NFL against single high defenses, but the Rams maintain their consistency when there's 2 high safeties because they can run the ball. Seattle has the lowest yards per carry mark in the league when facing 2 high coverages. They have to be able to have that counterpunch. They have to be able to have something other than the home run balls with Sam Darnold over the top, because if the Rams take that away again, they haven't shown yet that they have have anything else to work with to manufacture offense. It's become a bigger problem later in the season, especially lately for Darnold when he can't hit those deep shots consistently throughout the course of a game. They've got to run the football better in Seattle if they're going to win this game, and they have to allow Darnold to work in the short and intermediate game to create first downs, because the Rams are going to sit back and they're going to dare them to manufacture offense.
Yeah, for as much as we've been praising what Clint Kubiak has been doing as the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, it does feel as though as of late, you and I have talked about this here on the show, that yes, the potency is still there for the Seattle offense to, really put up a ton of points and even, snowball or avalanche whatever their offense is doing and really let games pile on a ton of points at one time. But it's not like it's always like that. It's gone a little bit hot and cold here in the second half of the season. So you want to be firing on all cylinders. You want to be very efficient when you're heading into the playoffs. So I think this is obviously a big game for them in that regard and getting the run game going. So I do agree with you. On the Rams side of things, Dalton, for as great as the Rams offense has been this year in so many ways, especially the second half of the season, which you've done a great job pointing out, them having, some of the highest graded single game grades of any team in the NFL. They've got, what was it, 7 out of the top 20 that we've
Correct.
had over the last, 8 weeks or whatever it's been, like since the second half of the season started. So they've been dominant on offense, but on third down, they have been the best team in the NFL. Right now for 2025 overall, they're ranked 21st in the NFL when it comes to third down percentage. It's just over 37%. And when you go back to that game in week 11 that they played the Seahawks, I talked about them sort of just barely hanging on to win that game. Their lack of ability to convert on third down was a big reason why. 18% in that game on third down when it came to conversions. Now, they had a handful of opportunities in third and short. They also had some opportunities where it was third and 10 plus that you don't really have a great chance of being able to convert. But they had a couple opportunities where, ball hit the receiver's hands. He just couldn't come down with it. There was a missed blocking assignment on the third and goal situation and another third and short situation a little bit later in the game. And so execution on third down just has been a little bit of an issue for this team. And I tried to look at that game specifically and say, like, man, was there something that Seattle was doing that was really giving them fits? And I couldn't really find anything. Like, Seattle would dial up some pressure. They'd bring in an extra guy to blitz and just give Stafford an extra thing to think about. But there wasn't anything really in particular that I could point to that said, like, yes, Seattle did this and it really rattled them. It really just came down to execution. And this is one of the best offenses in the NFL. And they simply just have to execute better on third down the way that they have at such a high clip on the early down. So can they fix that? Can they remedy that? And this Seahawks defense, for as much as we talked about the offense going a little bit hot and cold, this is still one of the best defenses and the fastest defenses in the NFL. So, shoot, if the Rams are right around 20% on a third down conversion, I don't know if I trust them to win this game. And with how well Seattle played them last time around, I'm going with Seattle in this one. I think that this is going to be a really fun game. The weather could certainly impact this score, but I'm going to go 31-28. I think both of these offenses are going to give each other their absolute best to try to get this win here. Massive win when it comes to who wins the division and potentially the number 1 overall seed. So I'll go Seahawks 31, Rams 28. And I'm cheating a little bit because I know that you're going with the Rams, and I'm going to try to flip-flop a game that I feel like is a coin flip between two good teams.
It is a coin flip, and they're two awesome teams, but I trust the Rams' offensive line and the way they're rolling right now and their ability to be two-dimensional on offense. I think that is the problem in Seattle right now. It's the reason they are so inconsistent, and the Rams played a really good defensive game last time against this team, only giving up 19 points and preventing those deep shots down the field for the most part. If Seattle's going to win this game, they need someone other than Jackson Smith and Jigba to play a really good game for them, whether it's in the run game with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, or if it's somebody else in the receiving game, if it's, Rashid Shaheed, the trade acquisition from the Saints, if it's the two tight ends, A.J. Barner and Elijah Arroyo. This cannot just be the Jackson Smith and Jigba show if they're going to win this game. The Rams know he's their best player. He's by far their best player on offense. So when you really look at this, for me, it's the Rams' ability to get two-dimensional. I think both defenses are going to play reasonably well again, but the Rams' ability to be physical up front makes a difference. Rams 24-20.
I can't wait for that one. It's just gonna be such a good game. This is simply put two of the best teams in the NFL. Moving to Saturday. That's right, we got some Saturday games here in the NFL. The Washington Commanders are hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, no Jaden Daniels in this game. Jaden Daniels ruled out for the rest of the year, which makes sense. Washington's currently in line for a top 10 overall pick. There's no reason putting Jaden in more harm's way than was necessary this season. And, Jaden talked about it, how it's been a frustrating, disappointing year for him. And that's just been the case with Washington. But Washington hasn't played terrible with Marcus Mariota in there at quarterback. If Philly wins this game, they clinch the NFC East title. Dalton, talk to me about Philly. They're coming off of a game where They beat the Raiders 31-0 last week. How much do you take away from that game, and what do you expect to see in this one against the Commanders?
Not a whole lot. The one thing I would hope they lean into offensively is the idea that they can get under center and succeed, because when they have done so this year, they have succeeded. They ran a season-high number of snaps. I believe it was 30 snaps last week against the Raiders from under center. Obviously, they were running the football a lot to shorten that game and get it over with, but this has been a theme for the Eagles all season. I think when you look at them under center, they're a more efficient, more explosive offense. 80.7 offensive grade. When they're under center, that goes down to 75 in the gun or in pistol. And the big thing has been their passing game and setting up play-action shots for Jalen Hurts down the field. 9.6 yards per pass under center, goes all the way down to 7.2 in the shotgun or the pistol. Being under center allows them to be less predictable. It gives them more direct running lanes for Saquon Barkley. They've been using heavier personnel. I think this is just how they should proceed and get under center at a higher percentage going into the playoffs here and experiment more with it later in the season. If they win this game, they clinch the NFC East. They can experiment more with these types of things as they're trying to, move up in the seeding process here in the last 2 weeks of the season after this. But this is really where they need to succeed. And Trevor, they are 8-1 this year when they run at least 10 plays under center. They just need to be able to get under center, be physical, trust this offensive line and these tight ends, and then use play action, I think, at an even higher rate than they have been lately.
Yeah, and they go Washington this week, then it's at Buffalo the following week, and then it's Washington again to end the season. So it's not like Philly can totally, take their foot off the gas here. Looking at the standings, they are 9-5. You've got Chicago sitting there at 10-4. You got the Rams and Seattle at both at 11-3. You got San Francisco at 10-4 as well. Next week, I don't think they're going to have the opportunity to be like, okay, well, we can't get the 1 seed, so it doesn't really matter. But I do agree with you that you win this game, you take care of business, you allow yourself to lean into maybe an identity that might not be good right away, but you could get some very rare, like live practice reps, if you will, in the regular season and in game. And I think that's really important for them moving into the playoffs to just find whatever the best version of their offense is, because I think that's what we've complained about the most with Philly is that it looks hard this year. It just does not look the same. And so if you get that luxury to maybe set yourself up to be able to do that in the last 2 weeks, specifically the last week, I think against Washington when they face off again in 2 weeks, I think that could be paramount for them. So winning this game is going to be a big deal for the Eagles. I went back and I looked at that NFC Championship game that they played last playoffs. Philly beat the Commanders 55-23 in that game. Washington turned the ball over 4 times. They had 1 interception. They had 3 fumbles and 3 fumbles lost. Dalton, the Eagles also went 7 for 7 in the red zone. So anytime that you're anywhere near, if you went 3 for 3 in the red zone, you're probably winning the game, let alone if you go 7 for 7. I think that something that you mentioned with them getting under center, yes, I think the run game could be better. Yes, I think the pass game could be better when they get under center. They're just a more diverse offense where there's a lot of things that they could do, especially in the play action game where you feel very confident in how you're going to be able to manipulate the defense. I think this is a good week to test that because Washington's just really struggled to defend the deep ball, right? So are you able to pair play action with, what Jalen Hurts has been seeing deep down the field, getting A.J. Brown more involved here in the second half of the season? Commanders have given up the 7th most deep passes of 20 or more yards on the season. They've given up 24 total. So I think that if you're the Eagles, you can't take this team lightly, right? I mean, like the phrase, you don't want to play with your food here, right? I mean, like I said at the very top, Mariota is very capable of having a good game, playing a good game, and Washington's capable of giving the Eagles a run for their money here, especially with this being in Washington. But I think that the way that Washington has struggled does set things up for the Eagles to take advantage of it, at least the way that they should. Because if they see another team that struggles with defending the deep ball when we get into the postseason, can you go to it at will? Can you be efficient in that regard? I'm going to take Philly in this game. 28-20. I think it'll be decently, I think it'll be a one-score game here, but I think the Phillies should win this game, so I'm going 28-20 the final score.
Agreed here. The Eagles are just the better team. I know they're going on the road, and like you mentioned, Mariota makes most of the games that he plays in very competitive, but I'm going Eagles 27-17. I also think the Commanders have a huge problem on the outside with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith with their struggling group of cornerbacks. It's a unit that has not played well all season. I think there's going to be enough big plays for Brown and Smith on the outside in this game, and I think the Eagles are going to be able to stop the run against an inconsistent Commanders run game. I like them to win the division in this one.
Packers and Bears, this one in Chicago. I haven't checked the weather, but I have to assume it will at least be slightly warmer than the game in Chicago that we saw this past weekend. Maybe not too much warmer because it still is Chicago in December, but I got to think that it's going to be a little bit warmer than what it was last week. Watching the All-22 and the replay of that game, just like watching all of the players and watching the cold breath from all of them right before the snap. I mean, that's a classic type of a game. Dalton, okay, you're nodding your head. What is it? What is it for the weather? I'm assuming that you saw it.
It's not too bad. 28 degrees, not a whole lot of wind, pretty sunny. That's not bad. Oh,
T-shirt weather. You know that. Yeah. You lived in Chicago. It's T-shirt weather.
That's nothing. 28 degrees at Soldier Field. That's like summer all over again, man.
That's what I'm saying. I'll start with this one. I'm going to talk about the Green Bay Packers. I want to talk about their offense here, specifically when they matched up against the Bears a couple of weeks ago. It was a big Christian Watson game. He was able to get 2 touchdowns in that game. That was really what started, I think, the next couple of games of him just playing very well and being that deep threat that Jordan Love was very confident going to. And we talked about how it totally unlocks the offense when Jordan Love has that player that he could go deep to, because that's the type of backyard style quarterback that he is. Now, Christian Watson, I actually haven't seen his official injury designation. I am very much assuming that he is not playing in this game, correct?
I think they believe there's a chance. It's very much up in the air with him and with Zach Tom there at right tackle. That's going to be a big one to watch also.
So I'm operating that if you even get Christian Watson, you are getting a very hurt version of him, given what we saw with his injury last week. It's time for Matthew Golden to step up, because I think that if Watson is not in this game, you drafted Matthew Golden to be this type of receiver for you. And when you look at Matthew Golden, last week, 19.2 average depth of target, 79.5 receiving grade. That was the second highest single game receiving grade that he has had this season, and it was when they were attacking with him deep. This is why you drafted a player like this. You've now had ample time throughout his rookie season. I know he's been hurt and he has been in and out of the lineup. I get that, but this is the type of game where you want to have the ability to lean on him. And so I'm operating as if Christian Watson's not going to go in this game. If he can, fantastic. But I just feel as though that deep threat presence that Jordan Love has to have the confidence in to win this game, it has to be there, whether it's Watson, whether it's Golden, or whoever could possibly step up as that deep receiver for them. Because I think that that player is so paramount to what the Packers want to do on offense. They're going to need a receiver like that.
It looks like Watson and Dontavian Wicks are getting limited practices in today, and Zach Tom is not practicing. Again, that could be a crucial one there at right tackle, and especially when you talk about Josh Jacobs being banged up and playing through some injuries as well. So could affect their run game as well. But Watson, you mentioned it, Watson and or Golden, they need to be able to threaten safeties and be that vertical threat so Jordan Love can attack downfield, whether that's deep downfield on the home run shots or in the intermediate game where he's been so good all year.
Who you got for Chicago? What's the talking point there?
I think injuries are the theme here again for the Packers. And look, I think there's a lot of elements on this side of the ball. I can't wait for this rematch between Ben Johnson and Jeff Hafley schematically, especially in the run game after the Bears didn't have a single explosive run against the Packers in the first game. You would expect that to change, and the Bears' run game is going to have to be better for them to win it and control the pace of this game better. But the story is Micah Parsons, and the Packers, they're going to miss him, okay? 83.4 pass rush grade this season with him on the field. 53.3% pass rush win rate with him on the field. That drops all the way down when Parsons has been off the field close to 120 snaps pass rushing without him on the field. 58.8 pass rush grade, 45% pass rush win rate. Basically, Trevor, especially with their four-man rush, they go from a top 5 pass rush team with Parsons out there to a bottom 5 pass rush team with Parsons not on the field. And this is a problem. I think Jeff Hafley, who has not blitzed teams a whole lot lately with Micah Parsons Parsons out there and the ability for them to win with a 4-man rush, we're basically talking about this Packers defense like we did last year again. Is there enough of a 4-man rush to disrupt Caleb Williams against a really good offensive line here? Are they going to blitz more and send more pressure and change up the looks? Are they going to be able to contain Caleb Williams within the pocket? I think there's a ton of pressure on their next two edge defenders, Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness, to generate pressure off of the edge, because if they can't do it without Parsons, they're going to have a hard time winning a Super Bowl. This is the first litmus test for that defensive line this week.
So who you got in this one? Who you taking?
This is hard. This is another coin flip one. You've got the rivalry. It's in Soldier Field. The Bears were so close to tying the game up last time, right? And I really wrestled with this one, but I do struggle with these Packers injuries. Without Parsons, possibly without Zach Tom in the trenches as well. Maybe Christian Watson, maybe not. Banged up Josh Jacobs. I'm actually going to take the Bears to finish the job this time. I'm going to take it 28-27. I'm doing the old cop-out 1-point win. I think Ben Johnson is going to find more holes in the run game, and they're going to have to be physical up front and create more space in the run game to create explosive runs. But the lack of a pass rush, I think, is a problem for the Packers, and it's something we're going to be talking about for several weeks moving forward.
You know what? I wrote down initially that I saw that you picked Chicago before the show. So I was like, okay, this is another game that's a coin flip game. I'm just going to take the Packers. I do agree with you, though. I think that Green Bay's injuries are going to catch up to them a little bit in this one, and I think that Chicago is going to win it. I'm going to go with Chicago 30, Green Bay 27. I think that I'm switching it here. With me being behind you on the standings when it comes to picking games, I probably should be picking the Packers, but I agree with you. Chicago was so close when they were in Green Bay. I get worried about the injuries and how they are mounting there for Green Bay. If they're able to win this game, that is one hell of a game for them to win. Hats off to what the Packers can do if they can win this one. But I am also going to go with Chicago here. So
see, I'm surprised. I'm surprised you're going with the coin flip strategy in the big games, right? I would think maybe you got a handful of games here that don't count for anything and they could just be complete chaos, and you don't know which team is going to show. I figured you might go with that route in some of these other games here. That don't have any playoff implications.
I feel like we have a couple of those. We have a couple of those where I'm also flip-flopping a little bit with you on the games that don't have playoff implications. But just because I still need to catch you in the standings for picking games doesn't mean I could just let you get some free ones. And if I, in my heart, think Chicago is going to win, which I do, I got to stick with it, and I got to go with the Bears. So we're both picking the Bears for that one. Hey, obviously, we're talking about a lot of different stuff. We're throwing a lot of different numbers at you guys. If you guys want to see all of these numbers for yourself, you could do so with a PFF Plus subscription using the promo code HOLIDAY30. You can get 30% off right now. So that allows you to see all of the grades, all of the premium stats. You get the fully unlocked mock draft simulator for all the fans of teams out there that are already turning the page to the offseason. We'll have the free agency tools for you as well. Fantasy football tools, betting tools, all of that great stuff comes with a PFF Plus subscription. So if you don't have one, now is a great time to get one before the year ends, using that promo code HOLIDAY30 to get yourself 30% off. Here's another game.
Game of the week.
Got a lot of
Game of the week. Here we go.
Things on the line. And when I say interesting, I mean literally everything. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to Carolina to take on the Carolina Panthers. This is the first of two times that they will face off over the next 3 weeks. And these teams neck and neck right now. The same exact record. Winner obviously gets the advantage in the NFC South, and we know that when you win your division, not only do you make the playoffs, but you host a playoff game. And so this is a big deal in a lot of ways. You want to talk about the Panthers, or do you want to talk about Tampa's side of things, Dalton?
We're going to talk about Dave Canales and the Bryce Young and this Panthers offense. And I wanted to look into this because it really frustrated me last week against New Orleans when I would watch this team on first down, and it was just run after run after run, and it just felt like the offense just had one sequence to it, and Dave Canales was not going to get away from it. So I wanted to look into this as far as the season and how often they throw on first down and how aggressive they are. And look, Bryce Young, he's got a 77.7 passing grade this year on first down. That's the 10th best in the NFL, right? When they've allowed him to attack on early downs, especially on 1st and 10, he has been really good, and I think those have been some of the best moments of Carolina's season. For the year, on first down, they have the second lowest pass rate, all right? They have the 4th lowest play action rate, and they are 21st in average depth of target. This team, to me, goes through stretches in games where they're just too conservative and they are too rooted in the foundation of their offense, which is very good. Their offensive line, the run game, Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard, that's really been working all season. They've been physical, and it has gotten them to places where, they've beaten teams like the Green Bay Packers, like the LA Rams, some of the best teams in football, but also that conservative approach, especially when they're ahead in games, to me is a problem. I think it's really what's cost them against the New Orleans Saints in both of their games and some other frustrating losses is that they just don't let Bryce Young take the reins often enough. Let me give you an example. This team has 23 explosive passes on first down this season. That's 25th in the NFL, the 8th fewest, all right? Only 2 of those 23 explosive passes have come when the Carolina Panthers have a lead. 2 of them on first down with a lead. To me, look, you can run your offense, you can run the ball all live long day, but the best moments and the ceiling of this team have come about when they give Bryce Young the reins and they let him take shots downfield. We talked about this all throughout the second half of last year, his improvement throwing the ball down the field. This year, there's been certain games, the Rams game, the 2 Falcons games, right? Let Bryce Young be the quarterback you need him to be to get into the postseason. Because if you continue to try to hide him, you won't win this game. You won't win the second game against Tampa. You won't beat Seattle next week. You won't go to the postseason. If you want a trophy, if you want to win this division, you have to find out, good or bad, whether Bryce Young is able to do that, right? And we have seen moments where he has been able to do that. We've seen other moments where he's faltered. But right now in these 3 games, this final stretch where Carolina is squarely in line, they're tied for first place, you win these 2 games against the Bucs, you win a division. You have to find out if Bryce Young is that guy. You're not going to do that by hiding him and having him throw the ball 22 times in a big spot. They need to get more aggressive on early downs. They need to stay more aggressive if they get a lead in this football game, because Baker Mayfield is going to go down swinging, whether it goes right or wrong, right? But he's going to go down swinging. They need to do that with Bryce Young. They need to find out if he is that franchise guy. Find that out in the next 3 weeks. And you know what? If you let it rip and it goes wrong, then maybe you need somebody else. But you have to get more aggressive on first down in this game. You can't just let Tampa stack the box on early downs.
I agree with you, and I think over the next 3 weeks, whether or not they get aggressive or not with Bryce Young will tell you all you need to know about what they think about him, right? Because this is somebody who, obviously, Bryce has been the guy for them this entire season, but you go back to last year, Dave Canales was still the coach, right? He watched Bryce Young in those first 2 games to start last season. He was so bad that he benched him, and really the only reason why Bryce Young got back in the lineup is because Andy Dalton ended up getting hurt. Now, obviously, Bryce was great towards the second half of that season when he did get back in the lineup, and so it's great that happened, but there was still this hesitation. There was still that sort of view of this player. That doesn't totally go away. And I think that this year, you maybe see little bits of that in what you are talking about. Do they trust Bryce to keep his foot on the gas when it comes to them having a lead? And it just doesn't seem like they do. Now, obviously, I think that they are very comfortable running the football behind that offensive line. I think that goes into it as well. But I think that these next 3 games, to your point, are very, very important for Carolina. Do you have the quarterback that you trust in to be able to go and win, not just win, control games for you? Do you have faith that he is doing the right things with the ball in his hands? And we'll see that. I think we'll get a good look at that over these next 3 weeks. For the Buccaneers, I sound like a broken record. And I believe that I even said that phrase last week. But if Baker Mayfield does not play better, the Buccaneers will not win. He had a 22.2% uncatchable inaccurate pass percentage last week. That was top 10 in the NFL, or bottom 10, the way that you really should look at it. The week before, it was 37%. The week before that, 16.7. Okay, not bad. The week before that, bad once again, 33.3. That was the worst in the NFL that week. Now, we're not talking about just like slightly missing. We're talking about uncatchable, inaccurate passes. Fully away from the body, too far for outstretched arms for wide receivers to go get it, way over their head. That's what we're talking about here. Mayfield has just been so inconsistent since he was on that early MVP tear in the first 5-6 weeks of the season. And it was a little bit better last week. I'm very interested to see, now that their back really is against the wall, with what happened on Thursday Night Football, how that game ended, which, by the way, if Mayfield hits an open Emeka Egbuka, that game is over and he does not hit him. What does it look like with I mean, Thursday Night Football was catastrophic, right? How they lost that game, right? They scored enough points, sure, but the defense absolutely blew it for them. Gave up the 14 points in the fourth quarter, 15 points in the fourth quarter, excuse me. Gave up a 3rd and 28, gave up a 4th and 14, and on top of all of that, Mayfield had an opportunity to seal the game, and he missed his wide receiver. Everything went wrong for the Buccaneers last Thursday night. And I think that you saw the emotion spill out with how the players and head coach Todd Bowles reacted to it. What are you now? I'm interested to see, now that Mike Evans is back in the lineup, now that they gave him a massive workload last week and he was able to show, hey, I am good to go. You got Godwin who's good to go. You got Jalen McMillan who's good to go. And Emeka Egbuka, obviously. This team's going to run a ton of 11 personnel. And I think that we saw that last week as well. Over 85% of their offensive, their passing personnel last week was 11 personnel. That was the 3rd highest number of 11 personnel snaps, so with 3 wide receivers on the field, that they have had this season. The other 2 games, one was with the Houston Texans on Monday Night Football, where they really just wanted to light it up. They had Evans at that point. That was before he got hurt. They had Emeka Egbuka, and Sterling Shepard was the other player there. And then the other time was against the Los Angeles Rams, when they knew they were going to have to put their pedal to the metal the entire game in order to keep up with the Rams. So other than that, last week, highest percentage of 11 personnel plays that they have had in a single game this season. To your point, the Buccaneers, they're going to be gunning for this. At this point in time, with their record and the way that they have played over the last 8 weeks, they kind of have nothing to lose at this point. I mean, the fans are already mad at them. The coaches are obviously blowing a gasket. The players were letting their emotions spill after last week. They're kind of, I think that they got nothing to lose at this point because of how poorly they have played and how bad they have blown their lead in the NFC South. I actually think Tampa wins this game. I think Tampa wins this game 27-17. Maybe Dalton, it's because I think that that's what makes the least amount of sense. And anytime I think I know what's going to happen in the NFC South, the very opposite happens. So Carolina, they're at home. They've been more stable. They should win this game. I'm taking Tampa, 27-17.
You know what's hilarious about that is basically when I was making the pick for my pick for this game, in my head was everything you just said about Tampa Bay. They're pissed off. Everyone's doubting them now. They're still tied for first because the Panthers lost to the Saints and all of that. And they're going to come out and win, right? They're going to come out and prove they're still the kings of the NFC South. And I did the same thing the other way. I said, you know what? Then I have to remember who we're dealing with on the other side, the team that I picked to get blown out by the Rams and won, and lose to the Packers and won, and then pick both times to beat the Saints, and then they lost both times. And you're right. This division just makes no sense at all. These two teams make no sense at all. So I actually did the exact opposite of what you did. My gut told me, my first instinct told me, pick the Bucs. They're better. They're going to be mad. They're going to come out and win on extra rest. And then I said, nope, this is the Carolina Panthers. Give me the Panthers 24-20.
Tampa's favored by 3 points in this game on the road.
I at this, you could put any spread up there, and I'd be like, yeah, this is probably a road we get there. Sure.
No, I can't believe that. I can't believe that Tampa is favored by 3 points on the road in this game.
This really should be a pick'em.
I would 100% should be a pick.
I wouldn't even put a line on this game. I have no idea. I really, at the end of it all, we can do all the analysis we want. These two teams, I'm almost like just sick of picking games for because I don't know what we're getting out of either of them. I really don't. I should have just called a tie. That would be the most appropriate.
That would have been great. Well, if this game ends up being incredibly dumb, and then if both of these teams lose their Week 16 games. Just call the Week 18 game a tie. I think we'll both probably call that one a tie. But somebody, in theory, we think has to win this game, and I think it's only right that we're on opposite ends of the coin here with two teams that it feels like nobody knows how to predict. We got the New York Jets traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints that are kind of feeling themselves as of late here. We talking about your Jets to start this one, or are we talking about the Saints? What do you want to do?
We'll talk about the Jets and their one bright spot on offense when you talk about these two young offensive tackles, Olu Fashanu on the left side and Armand Membu on the right side. The Jets have the 9th highest pass blocking grade in the league from their offensive tackles. Now, we don't know who their quarterback is going to be for this game yet, if it'll be Brady Cook again or if Justin Fields or Tyrod Taylor might be healthy enough to play. This is obviously recording on a Wednesday, so we don't know who their quarterback is yet. But regardless, these two guys on the edges have been really protecting well all season. They've played so well for first and second year guys in the league. And the Saints edge defenders are running hot right now. When you talk about ever since Chase Young got healthy, they've gotten a lot better. He's been really good. Carl Granderson, Cameron Jordan in really kind of a part-time role, a rotational role that works best for him at his age. Since week 7, Saints edge defenders are 7th in the league in pass rush grade, so I think you've got another really fun test. If you're looking for any sign of hope on this Jets offense going into next year, it's these two offensive tackles. They're going to get a fun test against a bunch of veteran edge defenders for the Saints who played really, really well last week in their win over Carolina. I think that's going to be a big factor in deciding this game again.
Yeah, when you look at the Saints side of things, Tyler Shuck and what he has been as a rushing element to the Saints offense has been great, very needed for them. 75.8 rushing grade over the last 2 weeks. That's best on the team. Now, he doesn't have the most rushing yards, I don't believe, but he has the highest rushing grade for sure. And this is somebody who, now that you have to account for him out of the backfield, it's putting a threat to the Saints offense and defending them that they haven't really had all season long, when it felt like just the run game at all whatsoever was just not really efficient, not really dynamic. And now it's something where, okay, well, if we don't keep track of this guy, he's going to be able to, run to the outside, outrun linebackers, whatever it is. So his added rushing element to this team, I think, is really unlocking something new for them, which is a lot of fun to see. We talked about there's some games and matchups where there's not really any playoff implications on the line. This is one of them, right? The Jets currently have the number 5 overall pick in the 2026 NFL draft. The New Orleans Saints have the number 7. I think this game matters more for the draft for the Saints specifically because their strength of schedule is below 500 right now, which means that they win any tiebreaker anytime that they are tied in record. For example, they're sitting here at 4-10. Washington's also at 4-10. Cincinnati's also at 4-10. And yet the Saints pick higher than them in the draft order because they have the lower strength of schedule. So if the Jets were to win this game, I think that it really shifts things in New Orleans' favor because it allows them to jump back into the top 5, potentially in at number 4. But then if New Orleans wins this game, man, we're talking about New Orleans all of a sudden. Dalton, they were picking like number 2 overall a couple weeks ago. We're on the cusp of them not being in the top 10 if they aren't careful here. I don't know. Maybe the fans just want to win no matter what and forget the draft position. But I'm taking the Saints in this one. I think the Saints are going to win. This one's in New Orleans. I don't like taking road teams when they're traveling to New Orleans to face them. So I'm going to go the Saints 19, Jets 14.
I'm taking the Saints for 2 reasons. Number 1, they're playing better. I'm taking them 24-16. And number 2, I already told you I wasn't taking the Jets in a game pick again this season. So at any point, if you want to try to call out a Jets win to try to pick up a game in the standings, feel free because I'm not going on that side.
That would require me picking the Jets, which I don't think that I am going to do for the rest of the season either. The Chargers and the Cowboys, the next game that we have here. Very interesting game. The Cowboys, I believe, have to win out, and Philly has to lose out in order for them to make the playoffs. Chargers, what's their standing right now? They're sitting here at 10-4, so obviously they're feeling pretty good. Yeah, they're 5-0 in the division. I don't think I realized that. So they're feeling good about any sort of tiebreakers they got in the division, but Chargers still got to pick up a couple wins here as the season goes on. You want to talk about the Cowboys? You want to talk about the Chargers here for this?
I'll talk about the Cowboys offense in just a second. I was just pulling up if the Chargers will be in the playoffs with a win and either an Indianapolis or a Houston loss. One or the other of those teams loses and the Chargers beat the Cowboys. They will be in the postseason.
Well, we're not getting a Houston Texans loss. So
that part is true.
They're playing the Raiders. So they're not going to lose.
Colts host San Francisco on Monday night. That one could be
That's
fun.
The one that could be that could hold the ticket to the Chargers potentially clinching a playoff spot.
So you've got a fun matchup here on the defensive side here for the Chargers against Dak Prescott, who obviously with George Pickens, with CeeDee Lamb, with Kevontae Turpin, Jake Ferguson, all the weapons that he has been throwing the football down the field so well. Top 5 passing grade in the NFL this season. And really his ability to throw it vertically down the field and throw it past the sticks has been the biggest asset for this Cowboys offense this season. Dak Prescott on throws past the sticks, 6th in the NFL in passing grade and the 2nd most touchdowns touchdowns in the league. I believe that's behind Matthew Stafford for the Rams, who obviously might win the MVP. But the Chargers and Jesse Minter, their defensive coordinator, and this great secondary that he has, they do such a great job of preventing those vertical passes. On throws past the sticks, the Chargers are first in coverage grade, and they have allowed the lowest passer rating in the NFL. It is going to be difficult, even though they don't blitz a whole lot, and Prescott is going to have time in the pocket. It's going to be difficult to work downfield, especially just this great safety group that they have. Derwin James, obviously one of the best players in football. The veteran Tony Jefferson having a great year. Not sure if we're going to see the rookie R.J. Mickens, suffered a shoulder injury last week. There's Elijah Molden back there as well, but they got a great group of safeties that are always just in the right spot with their assignments and all the zone coverage that they run on the back end. So preventing explosive passes is something the Chargers do better than almost anybody. Dak Prescott is better than almost anybody at quarterback in creating explosive plays down the field. That's going to be a really fun matchup to watch with Prescott and these receivers against the Chargers secondary.
Yeah, this is I don't know if people don't think it's going to be a good game or not. Like, this is a sneaky great game for me. I can't wait to watch this one for the reasons that you mentioned. And then also the Chargers offense, trying to figure things out. But I think that they've got a gem in Omarion Hampton, who's now back in the lineup after missing a good chunk of the year due to injury and being on IR. Over the last 2 weeks, Omarion Hampton, 68.9 rushing grade, 4.1 yards per carry average, 75 yards after contact, which is beautiful to see. But Dalton, that stat at the bottom of the screen is where I really want to focus. 67.0 rushing grade for Omarion Hampton versus 43.5 rushing grade for Kamani Vidal when rushing outside zone. And so when we talk about the issues with the Los Angeles Chargers, we talk about the offensive line. I went back and I watched all of Omarion Hampton's carries over the last couple of weeks, and there are some plays when, they're running power, they're running counter, or maybe if it's an inside zone where there is absolutely no rushing lane whatsoever. And there are a couple of times that Omarion Hampton just, quotes Thanos and just says, fine, I'll just do it myself. And he'll just run full speed into his offensive lineman to try to pick up any yards. And he normally can because he's got some good speed power conversion. He's a strong dude. But the plays in which the Chargers were having the biggest impact on the ground were the plays where they were able to get to the sideline. And a lot of times those came on those outside zone runs. Kamani Vidal is a great running back when it comes to between the tackles, power stuff. But when it comes to that home run speed, he's had a couple of big runs this year. I don't want to take that away from him, but Omarion Hampton's got the extra juice. He's got more juice than Vidal does to get to the sideline, to beat the angles, and to get up the sideline for those extra yards there. That's paramount for being able to stretch the field horizontally at the line of scrimmage the way that they want to, knowing their interior offensive line and just offensive line in general has struggled to get push and protect so much this season. So if you create any sort of doubt and sidewise lateral type of game that the defense and the box defenders have to play, I think that's going to be really important. Of course, you're making the Cowboys, defensive backs then get in the run defense game when you're running towards the sideline. You're making those linebackers run and chase. And so the juice that Omarion Hampton has and how well he has been playing from those outside zone or behind those outside zone blocking plays, I think that is an X factor in this game. All that to say, I'm actually going to trust Dak Prescott here. I'm going to say the Cowboys win this one 28-23 as a final score.
This is a tough game because you do have some weird mismatches. If Justin Herbert is protected well, I have to think he's going to tee off on this secondary, this Dallas secondary, like everybody else has this season. But the Cowboys have to be, they can counter this if they can bring them down. They're top 12 in basically everything when it comes to the pass rush, grade, win rates, pressure percentage, all of that. But they're only 20th in sacks. They haven't been able to finish quarterbacks off enough, and that's exposed their secondary, especially late in the play. I think on the other side of the ball, I think the Chargers can do enough to keep these receivers in front of them. I do think there's a chance we get a high-scoring game here, but I'm going to take Herbert and the Chargers 27-24.
Bills at the Browns this week. Bills coming off of a big win last week. And the Browns, obviously a tough showing against Chicago. And we talked about how much the weather impacted that game. not ideal. Do you want to talk about the Bills for this matchup, or you want to talk about the Brown side of things?
I'll go with the Bills offense here, and obviously their goal first and foremost, even with Josh Allen as their quarterback, they want to run the football at an elite clip, right? And I think this Browns run defense, we've seen it be so good all year, but I think they're starting to wear down a little bit. And you can track these numbers back to week 8. They've really struggled, okay, especially keeping teams contained on the outside. Now, when you look at Buffalo's offense and the way they run it, something you've talked about a lot in the passing game is their offense with multiple tight ends on the field. This combination of Dalton Kincaid, Jackson Hawes, and Dawson Knox out there, all of those guys have had really good games, some of them at the same time in recent weeks. With Bills, when they have multiple tight ends on the field in the run game, they're second as a team in run blocking grade, they're 4th in yards per carry, they're 3rd in yards before contact per carry, and they're 2nd in explosive run rate. That's runs of 10 or more yards. So when you look at what the Browns have been doing lately against multiple tight end sets, because they don't put extra defensive linemen on the field, they run a 4-man front as much as anybody in football, and what they do to mitigate that is just widen their defensive ends out even further and try to keep contained with that 4-man front. Maybe they'll go single high. They run a lot of man coverage on the back end. So there's 8 guys in the box, but only 4 on the line of scrimmage still, and it's been a problem since week 8. When they have faced runs with multiple tight ends on the field, they've allowed the 5th highest yards per carry in the league. They've just had a problem containing on the edges. They're putting too much pressure on these defensive ends, and these backs are able to bounce to the outside away from all of those second-level defenders and create explosive runs against a Cleveland run defense that early in the year was arguably the best in football. Starting to show the cracks a little bit, starting to wear down. I think the Bills are going to lean into that again with Kincaid, with Knox, with Hawes, and that group of tight ends. They're the 3rd best run blocking group of tight ends in the NFL. I don't expect the Bills to change anything in their offense, and the only thing I have to say in the passing game is when you run a ton of man coverage like the Browns do, you better have somebody with eyes on Josh Allen, because he will take off scrambling.
On the Brown side of things, obviously they want to run the ball better than they were able to last week. I think that this offense staying balanced is really important for them, even if you do like Shedeur and what he's able to do with the ball in his hands. And when you look at Shedeur this season, he's got 8 big-time throws. He's got 10 turnover-worthy plays. Now, when I went to look at a lot of those turnover-worthy plays to wonder, okay, where are the areas where he's struggling the most? And then you look at the big-time throws and you say, where are the areas where he is succeeding the most? What I found, Dalton, is that I found this on film first, and then I tried to look up the numbers, and the numbers actually back this up. When I'm watching Shedeur, where he struggles and where he puts the ball in harm's way is when he is facing zone defenders. Now, that could be soft zone coverage from corners off the line of scrimmage who are able to break on like quick routes that he is throwing, or there have been a couple of times where you have like a cover 2 zone corner that's up towards the line of scrimmage, and Shedeur is trying to hit a hole shot in between where the corner is and the safety is, and the corner is able to recover and maybe get the interception there. There have been a couple of times where there's been some underneath zone defenders, some hook curl zone defenders. The linebackers have been able to cut him off there. And when you look at Shedeur's passing grades, he has a 77.6 passing grade against man coverage. So when he's able to see, hey, here's my wide receiver, here's the guy that's on him, even if it's tight coverage, that's where a good amount of his big-time throws and some really good throws come from him. But against zone, just a 44.6 passing grade in those situations. He just doesn't quite have the understanding yet of how fast these NFL defenders are. And that was something that, going back to the last 2 years when he was at Colorado, I was like, okay, like this is working in college. But that's one of the reasons why I wanted to point out that Shedeur has great touch on his passes, is a really accurate passer, but he doesn't have that top tier arm strength. So when it comes to really fitting those passes in between zone coverages, the margin for error is so much smaller at the NFL level, because these athletes, they're so much better at recovering and getting from point A to point B and even being able to cut off those passes. Shedeur is still learning NFL defensive back athleticism, and I think that's where he's struggling the most. And unfortunately for this matchup, Dalton, why I'm bringing that up, the Bills play a lot of zone coverage, and they play a lot of different zone coverage, so much so that even Drake May struggled with it last week, to the tune of them dropping that game to the Buffalo Bills. And so it's hard for me to look at this game and look at the trend of how Shedeur is learning in his rookie season and think that this is a good game to bet him for. I'm going with the Bills in this one, 24-14. I think that 10-point line there that Buffalo is favored by, I think that's kind of right on. And it'll be interesting to see if Shedeur just continues to struggle with those zone coverages, or if he's able to get a little bit better, maybe play against those and anticipate those a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely got to play with better timing to make up for that arm strength. And I think there's a few of those throws where he definitely telegraphed, too. He kind of locks into his first read pre-snap, and he gave away to the defense as well. We've seen a couple of those on those turnover-worthy plays. But I'm with you, 23-13 Buffalo. I do think going and scoring a ton of points in Cleveland is still tough to do. I mean, the Bills are going to have to run the ball. They're going to have to throw it to their tight ends like they always do. I think they get it done, though, against this Cleveland team that's really struggling offensively, especially up front.
The Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee here. This is one of those games that does not have playoff implications at all whatsoever. We all know that the Titans are not making the playoffs, and as of last week, neither are the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you want to talk about the Titans side of things or the Chiefs side of things, Dalton?
I mean, with the Chiefs eliminated and with Patrick Mahomes done for the season, we get a reintroduction, as we do at some point every year, to Gardner Minshew. And I'd expect that, look, Minshew, this game is going to be on his shoulders. The quick passing game, I think the screen game is going to be very heavy. You're going to see a heavy dose of it in this game because the Titans' run defense is really good and the Chiefs' rushing offense is really bad. So this game is really going to be on Minshew's shoulders. In his career, a 65.6 passing grade with 69 yards per attempt, 55 big-time throws, 68 turnover-worthy plays. When he's been safe with the football, he's been able to play efficient football and really a more conservative style because he's not going to wing it downfield like Mahomes can, especially over the middle of the field. But you can win games with Minshew if you do it right. I would expect that Minshew's going to get a lot of pass attempts here because I don't expect the Chiefs to run the ball well on this underrated front seven.
You know, if this game was in Kansas City, I'd probably be taking the Chiefs, but I'm taking the Titans in this game. I'm going to take the Titans to win this game for exactly the reasons that you mentioned. The Titans defense is more sound than I think it's getting credit for. When you look at the Titans over the last month, they have the 18th overall defensive grade. They've been better against the run. So I think they're going to continue to make the Chiefs one-dimensional, as if the Chiefs haven't done that themselves throughout the entire course of this season. And then when it comes to the Titans, I think that over the last couple of weeks, they've been able to get a really good ground game going to control the football and be less volatile, with Cam Ward having to put so much on his plate. 88.0 team rushing grade over the past 2 weeks, and Tony Pollard has an 85.4 rushing grade with back-to-back 100-yard games. And so I think it'll be tough against Kansas City. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes or not, it's still Steve Spagnuolo and this Chiefs defense. And like I said, I think that the Chiefs, if this was in Kansas City, I'd probably be picking Kansas City anyways. But that 3.5 line favoring Kansas City, I mean, that just kind of shows the type of year that they are having versus a team that is picking number 3 overall in the 2026 NFL draft as it currently stands today. So I'm going to go with the Tennessee Titans 23, Kansas City Chiefs 17. Man. Titans win this game.
You're calling out rock bottom for the Chiefs here, man. No championship pedigree, just no pride. They're not going to go out there and play with any pride. I mean, Gardner Minshew's a competitor.
It's more of a compliment to the Titans than it is me really going after the Chiefs. But we have criticized all year long the flaws on this offense when you had Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback. Now you're going from Mahomes to Gardner Minshew. This game, I think, really can be close, and I really do believe that Tennessee's got a chance to win it here with how they've been playing as of late.
I'm sticking with the Kansas City. I'm sticking with Steve Spagnuolo and this defense. Chris Jones and that him and the defensive line, I should say, and then that secondary behind him. I think they can prevent big plays and force a couple turnovers on Cam Ward. It's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be low-scoring. Chiefs 17-14.
All right, We've got a lot of really great numbers here that we use to analyze games, make predictions there, but we're also using it to make you and it more informed better using the PFF player prop tool, which you guys can see over at pff.com. We got a video to show you guys highlighting all of that and so much more. Check it out.
Everyone's got takes. Numbers have truth. And the truth is, most people are betting with emotion. Sportsbooks feed on it. TikTok gurus sell it. The hype machine runs on it. That's how you lose. PFF is different. You're betting with winning data. The same data trusted by all 32 NFL teams and the sharpest minds in the game. PFF betting tools take every prop, every matchup, every angle, and run them through our custom models. built on the best football data in the world. What comes back is your edge. Simple, sharp, and built to win. Want to go deeper? PFF puts a pro-level analytics department in your hands, giving you the same insights teams use to find every advantage. Build your game plan with matchup analysis. Project every snap, every matchup, and every edge before kickoff, because the smartest plays start long before Sunday. Hit rates show how a player performs against their prop and against defenses built the same way. It's the data that gives you real confidence in every pick. Next, Key Insights translates PFF data into the story behind every matchup, giving you the why that powers your bets. From coverage schemes to defensive looks, it's the context that turns raw numbers into winning decisions. When you're ready to take action, filter through every prop on the market and focus on the opportunities that matter, by game, matchup, or value. Then, shop for the best available line in your area and tap your book of choice to place the bet instantly. Everyone's got takes, but now you've got truth. Bet with data, win with PFF.
You guys could take a look at the fully unlocked PFF Player Prop Tool with a PFF Plus subscription, which I'll mention again, Holiday 30 gets you 30% off that PFF Plus subscription there. So check it out, guys. Next game that we're talking about here, the Giants and the Minnesota Vikings. This game's in New York in MetLife. Talking about the Giants or the Vikings here to kick us off here, Dalton?
Well, the Giants, I think you have a Jekyll and Hyde kind of situation here with Jackson Dart running the football, because he has been very good at it this season, right? At least 50 rushing yards in 6 of his 9 starts. He's 11th among quarterbacks with 4th among quarterbacks with 400 rushing yards this year, and 11th in rushing grade, 14 explosive runs as well. But you have to have this balance with the Giants playing in games that don't really mean anything for their team. And Jackson Dart continuously running the football and putting himself in danger running the football, right? He was checked for a concussion again last week, and you don't want him getting injured or having any sort of lingering injuries going into next season. So how do you balance, if you're Mike Kafka trying to win ball games and take some pride in this team's work, and also protecting Jackson Dart from himself a little bit, although his legs are a big weapon in this offense, right? Minnesota, they've allowed the 11th fewest rushing yards to quarterbacks this season. Surely, obviously, Brian Flores is going to know, hey, we got to keep this guy in the pocket and make him beat us with his arm. But I think that really is a big storyline, is Jackson Dart running the football. How much is he going to do it? How often is he going to put himself in danger? I don't know if you saw I believe it was a Hard Knocks NFC East clip that they were showing of Dan Quinn talking about playing the Giants last week and going, hey, he's going to put himself in danger. We got to hit him over and over and over, and see where it goes, see if he'll give up the football when we do hit him, when he takes off running. I think that's going to be a theme again this week. And Dart, if it's me, I'm asking Dart to protect himself these last 3 games because I need him for next season.
Yeah, and not just needing him next season. I think this sort of goes back to some of the points that we have made about quarterbacks and just offensive game plans and how much you can learn over these next 3 weeks. The New York Giants currently have the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL draft. They're not going anywhere when it comes to the playoffs. You're basically just trying to find answers for the next season. You're not looking to totally lay down in these games. You don't want to do something that you don't think is going to be successful. But Dalton, to be honest with you, over these next 3 games, I know it's a little tough because the coaching staff that's there right now is not going to be there next year. But to be honest, what the Giants should do is basically tell Jackson, hey, don't run. Very seldomly run in this game. We're going to operate. We're going to call this offense. We're going to operate this offense for you to be a pocket passer. That is what would be best with Jackson Dart, because then you can get the best look possible at what he is as a pocket passer over the next 3 games, to then find whatever the right mix is for him as a runner and a passer going into next season. So I think that what I'm saying is sort of like a fairy tale. I just don't know if that can really exist given the situation of everything that's going on with the Giants, with who's calling the plays and who's the head coach and who's not going to be there next year, all that kinds of stuff. But the best course of action for the Giants is, in my opinion, to just tell Jackson Dart, win from the pocket. Scramble if it's there, but slide pretty quickly. We don't need you putting your body on the line, and we don't even want it to be that big of a part of the game plan. We want you to win from the pocket. Let's see what you could do as a pocket passer, because I think that's what matters most here moving forward. On the Vikings side of things, their quarterback is also the storyline here. J.J. McCarthy had his 2 highest single game grades in the passing department over the last 2 weeks. And yet, Dalton, even over the last 2 weeks, had still just a 59.7 passing grade when under pressure. He just wasn't under pressure a ton. You would think that going up against this Giants team with Abdul Carter, with Brian Burns, with Kayvon Thibodeau, with Dexter Lawrence, you would think that that would spell a really good matchup for the Giants. But I was very shocked to read that the Giants have the fourth fewest pressures in the league over the last 4 games. I just don't really know what the Giants are playing for at this point. If that is the biggest talent strength that they have, and they have the fourth fewest pressures in the NFL over the last month, I can't pick a team that's operating like that. I just can't. I'm going to take the Vikings 21, Giants 19.
I'm going to take Minnesota as well, and one of the themes for me is that in each of the 4 games that J.J. McCarthy has won, he's had 25 or fewer pass attempts. I think the efforts of Kevin O'Connell lately to balance this offense out more with the run game and protect McCarthy from himself a little bit is going to be really helpful against this Giants run defense that has not been very good all season. So I think actually very quietly you could get a big game out of Aaron Jones and or Jordan Mason here. I think the balance in Minnesota's offense makes a difference. I've got the Vikings 23-19.
Bengals and the Dolphins this week gives us a chance to read a super chat that we had here from Ben, $5 super chat. We appreciate you, Ben. So Zach Taylor just said he's avoiding contract talks and coaching like every game is his last. I also saw a rumor that he kind of had a secret contract extension. What was it, last year, the year before? I can't remember what it was, but technically contract's not up this year from what I had read, and it's actually up the following year. So Bengals are in an interesting spot, though. Obviously, another disappointing season. Now, injury is a big reason why, Joe Burrow not being there for most of it, but it's certainly last week very frustrating as well with Joe Burrow even in the lineup, getting shut out by the Baltimore Ravens, still having a chance to be competitive down the stretch of this season. What about the Bengals are you looking forward to seeing in this game? What do you want to see from them?
I mean, if anybody else is going to step up aside from Jamar Chase, especially if T. Higgins is out as of, we're recording this on a Wednesday. As of right now, he's still in concussion protocol. Not sure if he's going to play in this game against Miami, but you look at the splits between those 2 guys, Chase and Higgins, and then everybody else on the team, they just don't have anybody else who has stepped up. Chase and Higgins combined this year have an 85.8 receiving grade and 12.3 yards per reception. Everyone else on the team, a 57.7 receiving grade with 8.5 yards per reception. They just don't have anyone else to step up. I saw this myself last week against the Ravens, where just when Higgins is out, the entire defense just tilts towards Jamar Chase, and they dare Joe Burrow to throw it anywhere else, and those guys are not creating any explosive plays at all. So I think that's the biggest concern. If Higgins is out and it's a one-man show again out there on the outside, they may have trouble scoring points again.
On the other side of things, on the Dolphins side of things, Tua Tagovailoa benched for this game after Mike McDaniel coming out and saying, hey, the quarterback play was not good enough, so everything is on the table. Well, the everything on the table came to the table, and that means that Tua is no longer starting for this team. They're going to start Quinn Ewers in this game, which is interesting. I mean, I think that what they're really looking for is for him to just not put the ball in harm's way, which I don't know how much I would trust overall. I mean, when you look at Quinn Ewers last year when he was in Texas, he had 21 turnover-worthy plays to 20 big-time throws. He had a 4.0 turnover-worthy play percentage and a 4.3 big-time throw percentage. When you looked at him in 2023, he had very few turnover-worthy plays, but it wasn't the same. He wasn't really asked to push the ball deep down the field as much. He just wasn't trying to win the game with his arm. I think it was totally different mindset from him. And then when he really started to open it up in 2024, that's when you saw the turnover-worthy plays creep back up. And when you look at why Tua was benched, well, this is exactly why Tua was benched. He's got 25 turnover-worthy plays. It's the most in the NFL. And he's got 15 interceptions. That's the most in the NFL. So the grades, the execution, putting the ball in harm's way, all of that was a major issue. And I feel like it's very interesting that they're starting Quinn Ewers here instead of Zach Wilson. I would have thought that Wilson, in theory, would have probably been the quarterback to limit the turnover-worthy plays the way that you would want, because he's at least been around the league for a handful of years and he's seen it. But I guess on the flip side, if you are going to move on from Tua this offseason, you know that Zach Wilson's not your guy. Maybe Quinn is. So I suppose that's really all that matters, and you're just trying to see what you have here from Quinn Ewers. And I think the offense was struggling even with Tua in there, and I think that it will probably continue to struggle with Quinn Ewers now there at the quarterback position. Devon Achane and how this team runs the football, I think, is how far the Dolphins are going to go. I don't have enough faith for them in this one. I don't have enough faith with Quinn making his first start. I'm going to say the Bengals win this game 28-17 is the final score.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like a signal towards a shift in the organization here for the Dolphins, that they have now fully acknowledged that this is a long-term project, and maybe it's something with injury guarantees or something like that in the contract, but also Tua, like you mentioned, just isn't playing very well.
Well, I don't know how much more money he could be guaranteed next season. I think he's guaranteed somewhere around $50-60 million next year already. Like, he's already getting that no matter what. So this is the kind of move that you can't make without ownership approval because of how much money is tied to this player for next season. And so it'll be very, very interesting to see what they do with him next year, because sure, I mean, you'd love to trade for him, but who's trading for him? Who's trading for this contract for Tua? I think we might be in a situation where they're just trying to manipulate as much as they can. Maybe we go with a Brock Osweiler situation where you're trading Tua and like a second or third round pick to somebody. Because the problem is, Dalton, there's like 6 teams that need a quarterback. And as far as we know, there's probably only one guaranteed quarterback to be drafted in the top 75 this upcoming year. It's going to be Fernando Mendoza. We'll see if Ty Simpson's in the draft. We'll see if Dante Moore's in the draft. But all of a sudden, man, this is going to become a very, very interesting offseason with quarterbacks.
And it's $99 million in dead money. If they cut him, then it'll just be a matter of if they're going to wear the brunt of all of that in 2026 or split it across the next 2 years. But that's what you're talking about, $99 million in a dead cap hit. So really, it's become a long-term project now with the Dolphins, and I think they were loading up for this as far as their offseason moves, like when they traded Jalen Ramsey and trying to fix their salary cap, because that's not a great situation anyway. But it sure feels like we're getting into some dark times here in Miami with the way their season's gone. In this game, I've got the Bengals 23-16. I think if T. Higgins is out, they could still struggle offensively a bit, but I can't really in good conscience take Quinn Ewers to beat Joe Burrow. I just can't do it.
I'm with you. I'm taking the Bengals as well. Jags and the Broncos. What an afternoon game that we have here. I don't know how many people looked at this one even before the season. And even if you like the Jags and the Broncos, we're saying that this is game of the week caliber stuff, but it absolutely is. 2 of the hottest teams in the NFL. 2 offenses that feel like they're firing on all cylinders, with defenses that are playing pretty damn well as well. We had to get our guy Terron Armstead in to talk about the trench matchup here for this one. Let's hear what Terron had to say. All right, Terron, we were just talking before we hit record here. Out of nowhere, a game of the week caliber game here between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Denver Broncos. I know there's a lot of other heavy hitters that we got this week, but this game specifically, it feels like it represents a change in things, a change in the AFC, a change in the AFC West, right? And these teams are rising to the top, and there's even some potential number 1 overall seed implications here on the line. Before we get into the tackle matchups, because I think the Broncos offensive tackles going up against the Jags defensive ends is a big talking point in this game that I got to pick your brain about. I want to talk about the run game, because I've been talking on this show for, feels like the last couple of months. When we talk about Liam Cohen, yes, the first thing that people talk about is Trevor Lawrence. What's he going to do with Trevor Lawrence? And Trevor Lawrence looks great as of late. But I feel as though Cohen was so good when he was in Tampa Bay, and he's so good now in Jacksonville about making the run game efficient to really complement the passing game. So I wanted to ask you, what goes into a good run game? You know, I think that people just blanketly say like, oh, the run game's got to be better. Oh, the run game's fixed. What goes into that from an offensive line perspective? Talk to me about the traits, the things that are paramount for having a good zone blocking scheme, a good power blocking scheme. What goes into just having a good run game from the offensive line?
Yeah, Trev, it's so many variables that goes into a quality run game. And one added bonus is elite quarterback play. So the fact that Trevor Lawrence is playing the way that he's playing, that takes a guy out of the box. That takes a safety out of the box. So now you're starting to run into favorable looks. So just that alone to start, that's helping the entire run game, the entire process. And everything else that goes into a great run game, we always look at the O-line as the reason or the reason why the run game isn't working. But that's not always the case. Most times, the big runs comes from your receivers. The blocking on the perimeter. So what I'm seeing from the Jacksonville Jaguars are those guys have bought in. They made trades, they made moves, they got guys in the lineup now. Those guys have bought in to taking care of the edge, going to dig out safeties, going to dig out corners. That's what make the long runs. That's how you get the big ones. And up front, those guys are bought in. They're bought in. They're moving people. It's a guy out of the box now because of the new deep threats and the way Trevor Lawrence is seeing the field. Jacksonville they have balance, the ultimate balance that you look for in offense. They're operating with that balance.
I think it's a great way to put it. And, I think earlier in the season, for example, you got a guy like Parker Washington who's really standing out at the wide receiver spot for Jacksonville. People are like, man, he's on the field all the time. They're using him all the time. Well, he's on the field, I think, because of what you said. Like, he's scrappy. He's feisty. He'll block. You go get a guy like Jacoby Myers and people talk about, okay, he's a possession wide receiver, a good guy in the receiving game, but he's another dude. He'll give you everything he's got. He's feisty. He'll block for you. So I think that's a really great point by you, even taking it beyond the trenches for a great run game. Let's talk about these offensive tackles. So on the other side of things, you've got two studs that Jacksonville has here, Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker as their edge rushers. And they're going up against two really seasoned, great offensive tackles in Mike McGlinchey and Garrett Bowles. First of all, Garrett Bowles, man, let's just talk about him a little bit. This is somebody who, one of the highest graded tackles when it comes to pass blocking numbers that we have this year, has not allowed a sack this season. He's got a tough test against Hines-Allen. So what are you expecting here in this one? What do you expect to see from both of these guys?
Yeah, man, just a lot of productive football from all four of these guys. A lot of high level ball that's been played. Garrett Bowles is playing at a really high level, at a Pro Bowl, All Pro level. Haven't allowed a sack. Keeping Bo Nix super clean back there. He's having the best year of his career. I see that continuing. Yeah, Josh Hines-Allen, his superpower is his power, going bull rush speed to power. But I will also say that's Bowles. That's his identity as well. Being able to have a strong anchor, stop power. He's seeing rushes really well, so he's very rarely out of position. And Bo Nix is hard to bring down as well too. So I see him winning that matchup, keeping Bo clean. On the other side, Trayvon Walker, he's trying to get a little bit more momentum and pass rush productivity. Mike McGlinchey hasn't been as clean as Bowles in pass protection, so that matchup can kind of favor Trayvon Walker, but the length that Trayvon Walker presents to most tackles, he won't have that advantage against Mike. So I'll take the Denver tackles in this matchup for sure.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to see this one because normally Jacksonville doesn't really flip these guys too often. So we're going to get a lot of Josh Hines-Allen on Garrett Bowles for this one. Really quickly, on the other side, just because I want to ask you about what it's like going up against a defensive front like the one that the Denver Broncos have, where they can throw a lot of things at you, right? I mean, like Zach Allen's a dude who can go basically line up everywhere on the defensive line. You've got Nick Bonito, who is sort of this like designated pass rusher, but again, like he can line up anywhere. How tough of a job is it for that offensive line to prepare for a defensive line that can throw so many things at you like the Denver Broncos can?
Denver's D-line they're special. This is a special unit where we're watching a historic season, the way that these guys are operating and the way that they play together. So they can line up for a cross and go have their individual matchups, but the way that these guys pick for each other, like the line game, Zach Allen knocking the tackle off, Nick Bonito coming around, and it just makes it really, really, really difficult to game plan and to have a solid protection plan because it's a smart unit, very smart unit. They see slides, they see tight end help, and then they just automatically go into line games and create confusion on one side, and the other side, they're having one-on-one matchups. So it's a really smart unit. Very special, and like I said, they're having a historic season. It will continue. Jacksonville has done a great job. Trevor Lawrence is doing a great job. But that Broncos pass rush, their O-line and D-line for the Broncos is the reason why they're my favorite to go to the Super Bowl and represent the AFC.
Man, I think that's a great shout out by you. Just talking about the football IQ of this defensive line, right? When we talk about defensive linemen or a lot of other positions, I don't think we mention football IQ as quickly as we should when listing the reasons why these guys are playing well. And that's a kudos to them. Kudos to Vance Joseph, their defensive coordinator, who's absolutely in his bag this season. I love the call out there. I love the call out for them to get to the Super Bowl, man. They're playing hot. And if they get there, man, they're going to be one hell of a team because we know that they're going to be riding high. Terron, we appreciate it, my friend.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Big game, Dalton. How you want to preview it? What are you talking about here for this one?
I mean, you talk about on the other side with that Broncos pass rush getting after Trevor Lawrence. He's going to have to play his best football again this week, and he's been so good over the last 5 games, Trevor. A 90 PFF grade, second best in the NFL. 8.6 yards per attempt is the best in the NFL, and these last 2 numbers I think are so big. 12 big-time throws is second in the league, and an 11.3 yard average depth of target, second in the league, which is interesting because the one guy ahead of him in that category is Jordan Love, who the Broncos just beat last week alongside the Green Bay Packers. I just think we've seen this attacking version of Trevor Lawrence more often now lately. 5 straight games with an average depth of target over 10 yards, and they've really figured out the groove as this receiving core has gotten healthy and more complete. Jacoby Myers has been a real good chain mover for them. Brenton Strange, we've talked about how he's added to the versatility of the offense. And then I think Lawrence just taking his chances downfield, especially with Brian Thomas Jr., that's going to be a big factor, especially with as much as the Broncos play man-to-man coverage in this game. I think taking shots downfield is going to be big. I think Lawrence's scrambling ability is going to be a big factor in this game against the Broncos man coverage. This is a fascinating matchup between 2 really hot quarterbacks, and Trevor Lawrence arguably over the last 2 or 3 weeks has played the best football of his career.
I think Chad is right in pointing out how well the Jags offensive line has also played as of late. Cole Van Lanen specifically has been awesome for them. And I think that matchup between him and really anybody on the defensive line, but specifically Nick Bonito, is going to be a fun one to watch. On the Broncos side of things, take a look at that week 15 game that they had last week where it was a thrilling game for Bo Nix, who had some unbelievable throws. He had 5 big-time throws, 4 turnover-worthy plays. And Dalton, they can be broken up very easily and cleanly into 2 different categories. When Bo Nix is on time, throwing the ball between 2 and 3 seconds after the ball is snapped, 96.7 passing grade with 4 big-time throws and 0 interceptions. Now, if you let that time to throw get above 3, drops all the way down to a 52.8 passing grade with 1 big-time throw and all 4 of his turnover-worthy plays coming after 3 seconds. When Bo Nix is on time, it's just a thing of beauty. And the offense, when it is operating on time, on schedule, in rhythm, Bo Nix can be a fantastic, explosive quarterback for you. But when he got in trouble is when the first read wasn't there, maybe the second read wasn't there, and then we saw this on a couple of his turnover-worthy plays. Double clutching, waiting just a second, being late on a throw. That's when he starts to get in trouble. So, can he continue to play on time? Does he have faith and confidence in what he is seeing pre-snap? Sean Payton ready for this Jacksonville Jaguars defense? I think that will be the telltale sign in this game. I'm going to go with the Broncos. 28-27. Coward's way out, 1-point game score here, but I'll take the Broncos to win this one.
I'm going to do the same thing. I think this is an awesome football game between 2 red-hot quarterbacks, 2 really good secondaries, especially that are going against those 2 passers. And I like the Jags' ability to balance things out with Travis Etienne in the run game. I think this is going to be an awesome football game that could come down to 1 or 2 mistakes on either side. But we saw a 10-game winning streak end last week in New England with the Patriots at home. I'm going to take the 11-game winning streak for Denver here to end to Jacksonville, 24-23. I'm also taking the Coward's way out there, but I'm gonna stick with Trevor Lawrence on this hot streak here. I'm gonna see if he can go into Denver and keep it going.
I can't wait. That's gonna be a fun one. Falcons and Cardinals, the next game that we're talking about here. 2 teams that are playing for I was gonna say playing for a draft spot. Atlanta's not really. Sorry, Falcons fans. I didn't even mean to throw that one at you as we started the preview of this game. Do you want to talk about the Cardinals or the Falcons here for this game?
Look, you're just getting their hopes up, Trevor.
I'm sorry. It was good intentions. It was good intentions.
This game right here is why Rams fans are still watching. You know that too, right? I mean,
yeah, of course, yeah.
The Rams,
they're hoping that the Falcons lose as many games as possible.
That team getting a top 10 pick almost feels unfair. But either way, this game, tell you what, Trevor, I'm going to talk about your guy because ever since, the last few games here, this stretch where Marvin Harrison Jr. has been out at wide receiver, guess who's emerged in that other spot? Michael Wilson. If you've taken a look at his last 5 games, I'm sure of all people you have, I'm sure you have. His last 5 games.
Aware.
How about an 83.7 receiving grade, 8th best among qualified wide receivers, tied for the NFL lead with 44 catches over the last 5 games? Who's he tied with? His teammate, Trey McBride, at tight end there, because the Cardinals just have to throw the football seemingly every play. Second in receiving yards and first over the last 5 games with 15 contested catches, even over the contested catch master Puka Nacua over there with the Rams. So I think the emergence of Michael Wilson and seeing his development as a feature guy should teach the Cardinals something, some sort of lesson about his talent going into next year, that even with Marvin Harrison back on the field either later this year or next year, they got to feature Wilson a little more because he's been really good lately.
I agree. He's been a major part of their offense, and I agree with you moving forward. He needs to continue to be a big part of their offense, even when Marvin Harrison Jr. is fully healthy and fully into the swing of things. Now, on the other side of things for the Falcons, you talked about how many receptions Michael Wilson and Trey McBride have had over the last, 5-week stretch, 4-week stretch, whatever it was. It's because they're passing the ball a lot, and they're trying to score as many points as possible because they don't really have a good run game to supplement it, and their defense has been letting them down a little bit here. Do the Falcons have the offense to keep up? Well, if they were playing the Buccaneers, I would tell you that they have the offense to keep up. But since they are not, when you look at what he was able to do in Week 15, even against the Buccaneers, when he was not blitzed and had no pressure, 88.0 passing grade, and then when there was blitz and pressure, he was below a 60. It's very simple. Pressure Kirk Cousins, he's not really going to be able to do enough against you at this point in his career. Now, unfortunately for the Cardinals, they're only 29th in the NFL in total generated pressures all season long. They've got to be better than that. They've got to have an aggressive game plan. I think they do, though. I think the Cardinals have an aggressive game plan on both sides of the ball, and I think they win this game 24-13 is the final score.
This is a game, again, because there's no stakes really, and you've got two teams playing with backup quarterbacks, I don't really know who's going to win this game. This is going to be just, if you ever wanted your coin flip game where you were right to probably take the other side of the game here with the pick, this is probably the right one. I'm going to take Atlanta 22-21. I think their pass rush and their ability to get after Jacoby Brissett will eventually make the difference, and obviously the Falcons have the best player on the field in Bijan Robinson. I think the run game can control the pace enough, but this feels like one of those wacky games where just you're going to get something weird all the way down to the wire.
Before we get to our next game, our game plan of the week presented by Western and Southern Financial Group, a game plan for your financial future. I'm actually going to take what you talked about earlier in the show. I'm going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles game plan of getting under center a little bit more, and you pointing out how much better the offensive grade is in the 80s when they are under center versus below the 80s when they are in the shotgun or the pistol. We feel like that's going to be a big reason why this team could have not just success in this week, but also potentially playoff successes if they get under center more. So I'm going to say that under center game plan is our game plan of the week here. Just like every team win starts with a great game plan, your future should too. With life insurance built like a championship roster, Western and Southern helps protect you and your family so you can focus on winning today knowing tomorrow is covered. Whether you're just starting out building your dynasty or looking to lock in long-term protection, their coverage options are designed to match your game plan. Visit westernsouthern.com/PFF to get your free life quote and start building your financial game plan today. Western and Southern, built to win, backed by over 130 years of helping people protect what matters most. The Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Detroit to take on the Detroit Lions. Dalton, I'll start with this one. I want to talk about the Steelers' offense. This is an offense where every single week when I take a look at their leading receivers, it's like, okay, DK Metcalf normally at the top of the list, but then normally when I see who is number 2 right behind him, sometimes even number 1 above him, it's one of these running backs. It's Kenneth Gainwell. It's Jaylen Warren. And last week it was no different. Kenneth Gainwell, second on the team in total receiving yards with 46. He had 7 targets and 7 catches on the game. I didn't check the overall receiving production for running backs, but when I looked at the previous week, the Steelers were second in the NFL at most targets and most receptions to the running back position this season. We know how Aaron Rodgers operates at this point in time. He wants to get the ball out of his hands quickly. He notices things in the pre-snap. He's not looking to hang on to the ball for a really long time. The running back receiving game is a big part of what can make the Steelers' offense effective. Now, when you're talking about that matchup against the Detroit Lions, it's not a good one for Pittsburgh. Alex Anzalone has an elite coverage grade against running backs this season, and overall, the Lions have, I believe this is the best coverage grade against running backs as receivers out of the backfield at an 89.5. And so if you could shut that part of things down, I have a lot of faith that you're really going to be able to limit what the Steelers want to do on offense. You're going to be able to stop them from getting in third and favorable situations and even converting on third down. And so I think that is a big reason why I like the Lions a little bit more in this game. But talk to me about the Lions side of things. What do you think?
I think it's a great call there with Rodgers as well. He's got the lowest average depth of target in the league, and even in this recent win over Miami, a 3.6 yard average depth of target, basically just playing point guard back there, and maybe occasionally taking deep shots at DK Metcalf. I'd be curious to see if he has that in his pocket like he did a couple weeks ago against Baltimore. I'm going to talk about Jared Goff in this passing game, and I know I've always spotlighted, can the Lions get to 100 rushing yards, and that's how they're going to win a game, but I think Jared Goff and his abilities to throw down the middle of the field are really tailor-made to beat this Steelers defense. 10th in the league in passing grade between the numbers, an 86.4 passing grade. Second most attempts between the numbers behind Patrick Mahomes. By far the most yards. I think it's around 300 passing yards more than any other quarterback this year between the numbers, and the most touchdowns at 15. The Steelers defending the middle of the field has been a real problem for them, especially with their linebackers Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen. 28th in the league in coverage grade between the numbers, and the most completions allowed. I think the way that you look at even last week against the Rams in that shootout they got themselves in, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams, they really dominated the middle of the field. Jared Goff in that intermediate range of the field over the middle, he's been really good, as he always has been, but really good this year especially, and I think this is going to be a big problem. If the Lions do get the run game and then the play action game going, that's exactly where they're going to attack, and that's the wheelhouse of their passing game.
So I like the Lions 28-17 as my final score here. Picking Detroit. Who you picking?
I'm taking the Lions 31-21. I think there is some concern about who's going to cover DK Metcalf. We'll see if DJ Reed gets the shadow on him in man coverage, or if the Lions are going to protect their secondary a little more. But I think the ability for Aiden Hutchinson to win up front against a vulnerable Steelers offensive tackle duo, and then, again, I think Jared Goff, this is a game where he could really dominate, especially, again, over the middle of the field. I think that's a real problem for Pittsburgh's defense.
The Raiders and the Texans doing battle in Houston here for this next game that we are previewing, and it'll probably be a short preview. I'm not going to lie, folks. Talk to me about the Texans, Dalton. What are you looking for with their offense?
I think a game like this, so for the stakes here for the Texans, if they win and the Colts lose against San Francisco, they don't clinch a spot, but they're pretty darn close to it. They've almost virtually clinched it, barring any sort of miracle there from the Colts and turning things around. But when you look at, to me, this game, what it should be is just a further gelling of their offensive line that has gone through a lot of changes and things like that during the season. Now they've got Trent Brown at right tackle over the last few weeks. They moved Titus Howard back into left guard. And you just got guys who are trying to gel and get better as the season goes on. You've got the rookie left tackle, Ariante Ursary, who was really good this past week. And I think that really needs to be the theme for this Texans team. They're going to go as far as their offensive line can take them. This is since week 5. The first month of the season was a real struggle, but since week 5, all right, we're 21st in pass blocking grade. At least it's not dead last like some people, like us projected them to be. 9th lowest pressure rate in the league since week 5. We'll take that. Impact run blocking rate at 11th right there. So kind of high variance when it comes to run blocking. It seems like it's either really good or there's a lot of whiffs in there too, which kind of evens out to being 23rd in run blocking grade. But this needs to be a game where this current unit, this current 5 they have on the field, just continue to get better, continue to find that chemistry both in the run game and in pass protection. Obviously a very winnable game against this Raiders team, but I think this offensive line is going to be the variable in how far the Texans can go. A really good game here and an opportunity for them to improve as a unit here.
On the other side of things, looks like Geno Smith's going to be back for the Raiders starting in this game. I suppose that will give them a better chance. And when Kenny Pickett out there, got absolutely destroyed in total yards. Only recorded 75 total yards on offense last week against the Philadelphia Eagles. They got beat 31-0, and they got absolutely destroyed in the time possession game. The Raiders aren't winning this game. They are 14.5-point underdogs, and the over/under is just 37.5. Would be the upset of the season if they win this game. Texans are winning 24-6. I do not have an answer for you as a way that the Raiders win this football game. I have no idea how they would win this football game. So Texans are winning it.
I agree, regardless of the quarterback. I have no clue how they're going to block this defensive line with their offensive line injuries. I don't know on the outside how those young guys on the outside are going to get open. Aside from Brock Bowers, he always gets his, but how the wide receivers are going to get open against this great secondary. And eventually, I think the Texans, their offense is real. We've talked a lot about Jacksonville in this division. The Texans are starting to really find it in both dimensions on offense. I'm actually, I'm going to get a little bit gutsy here. I'm going to take the same score the Raiders had last week against Philadelphia, 31-0 Texans.
I thought you were about to say that you were going to get gutsy.
No, not that. No, what are you, crazy? I'm still trying to stay ahead of you in the standings. I'm not going to be. No, I'm going to. I don't like calling out shutouts, which means the Raiders are now going to score like 27 points for no reason at all. But I'm going with it. 31-0, same score as last week.
I'm trying to look at what the money line bet would be for the Raiders.
Probably plus like 600 or so, somewhere in there.
It is plus 1,000 on DraftKings.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You can if you want to. Go ahead, Trev. Feel free.
Is there any game that's even above 300? The Browns are plus 480 money line to beat the Bills.
And even then, that feels like, okay, there's like a realistic, the Browns in Cleveland with their defense and, some nonsense. I don't even know if we got nonsense how close this game would be.
Plus 1,000. That's wild. Sunday Night Football is the New England Patriots trying to bounce back here after a loss to the Buffalo Bills. Traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. New England clinches the playoffs with a win here. What do the Pats have to do? Talk to us about it.
I think they need to run the football, and I think, despite the loss last week, they learned that Travion Henderson has the potential to be a superstar, and since they've really kind of given him, I don't want to say the starting reins because Ramondre Stevenson is still very involved in the offense, but over the last few weeks, when you look at the way that they've used Henderson and the way that they've been able to exploit defenses out on the edges now, which Stevenson, big-bodied back who's powerful between the tackles, but he doesn't get to the outside. This is the different dimension that Henderson adds, is off-tackle running, and then it gives Josh McDaniels and Drake May the ability to get into the bootleg game. But when you look at Travion Henderson running off-tackle this season, 502 rushing yards, that is fourth most in the NFL, 6.3 yards per carry, second most behind Jonathan Taylor, and 6 rushing touchdowns is the third most. And the guys ahead of him, even in the rushing totals, he has significantly fewer carries than the Jonathan Taylors and the Jahmyr Gibbs of the world. Travion Henderson and his ability, A, obviously with his speed to create explosive runs and long touchdowns, and B, the ability to get to the corner and outrun linebackers to the second level is extremely valuable to this offense. The more that they lean into it, the more two-dimensional, the better this offense is going to be. And the Ravens have been relatively average this year at defending on the edges in the run game, even with the improvement since moving Kyle Hamilton down to that big nickel linebacker kind of role there. So I think Henderson plays a big factor in keeping this offense balanced and creating big plays on the ground.
Speaking of the ground game, I thought it was interesting. Henry gets 100 yards last week against the Bengals. He had 94 the previous week as well, so he's been hovering right around there. When I looked at rush concepts that they've had the most success with, most yards before contact, so that's really the issue, right? Is I think that the offensive line for the Ravens just hasn't been as mauling as it has been in years past. So I looked at most yards before contact against the Bengals, and they came through 2 concepts: power, counter. So really, duo blocks and counter, so it's a lot of between the tackles stuff. Some counter plays, okay, you're getting a little bit more towards the tackle. Sometimes you're getting off tackle with it, but it's a lot of between the tackle stuff, running with power, man blocking concepts. That's really where the Ravens actually had the most success last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Bengals' lack of interior defensive line play, I think definitely goes into that. But if you want to use that as a talking point towards, okay, they're finding a little bit of success there because the ground game with the Ravens is pretty paramount to them having a successful outing. The Patriots, their top 2 run defense grades when it comes to rushing concepts is against the power and counter. So it's going to be a very different week here for the Baltimore Ravens. If they want to have success on the ground, they're going to have to find another way to do it, or they're going to have to do it at a level in which they have not yet this season. It's been a place where the New England has just been fantastic when it's come to limiting the output on those 2 rushing plays and against more power rushing concepts. Can the Ravens still have a healthy run game when they don't have as much success between the tackles? That'll be interesting to see. I do think the Patriots bounce back here in this one, though. I'm going to go with Patriots 28, Ravens 20 as the final score in this game.
I think that's a great call you make about the Ravens run game, because it felt like the last week, the first 2 drives or so, they were in the shotgun, they were trying to work with some inside zone, weak side zone concepts, and then it felt like sometime in the second quarter, they just quit messing around. They put Charlie Kolar, the big tight end, on the field. They put Patrick Ricard back there in fullback. They got in the eye. They had Ricard leading, and they ran power to that strong side over and over, and the Bengals had no answer for it. And I think what schemes like that do is simplify things for your offensive line. Instead of trying to read and pass things off and get to the second level, listen, when you run power and you're on that front side, down block. Whoever's in your inside gap, just mash them downward and let everybody else, let the pullers and let the backs do the rest of the work on the outside there. I think it's a good call to kind of simplify things. And the Ravens, they just need to find any way they can to get Derrick Henry going any given week. And what that tells me on New England side is the guy you need to look out for is the middle linebacker, Robert Spillane. He's going to be the key to stopping those runs. But I'm with you. I think New England is going to bounce back. I don't think last week's game is some big indictment on the New England Patriots. Yes, they blew a lead, but you know what? Josh Allen is Josh Allen, and when he gets desperate, he's going to go out there and give it everything he has, and he's maybe the one quarterback in football who is capable of making that comeback in that environment last week. So I'm going to take the Patriots 27-24, bounce back with a big win.
All right, last game, Monday Night Football. The San Francisco 49ers traveling to Indianapolis to take on Phillip Rivers, once again starting in this game, and the Indianapolis Colts. Talk to me about the Colts offense, Dalton. What are you looking to see in this game?
Well, what we need to see, and you want my broken record segment, here is the Colts segment on why they need to run the football to win ball games, because if they don't run for at least 100 yards, they're not going to. That's just how this works. The only game they won with less than 100 rushing yards was against the Las Vegas Raiders. Jonathan Taylor in his last 4 games, 55.8 rushing grade, 3.7 yards per carry. Just not efficient enough. Only 10 missed tackles for us over the last 4 games, and 1 run that's gone for at least 15 yards, and none in the last 3 weeks. So when you look at, again, it's cool to see Phillip Rivers out there, and it's fun as the field general, and he's out there checking plays and getting the Colts in the right fits and everything like that. But none of it matters. A quarterback does not matter for this team if they don't run the football well, if they don't get 120, 140 yards on the ground to set everything else up. I think Rivers can do a good job of managing this game. And look, the 49ers defensive line is pretty vulnerable. It's not very good against the run, and they rely in their run game on second-level defenders to make tackles and prevent yards after contact. They're very good at that. They're very good at rallying to the football. So what that tells me is Jonathan Taylor has got to play his best game, and he's got to win and make people miss at the second level and create explosive runs. If he doesn't do that, even though the Colts, yes, it was a close game last week, but they only scored, 16 points? They won't get much more than that unless Jonathan Taylor has a big day.
On the 49ers side of things, look, I understand that it was the Tennessee Titans, but we just talked about the Titans defense hasn't been terrible over the last month, and the 49ers just moved the ball at will, and Brock Purdy could not have been more confident in Week 15 against the Titans. When there was no blitz, he had an 84.5 passing grade. When there was no pressure, 81.1 passing grade. When there was pressure, a 91.3 passing grade. And when he was facing the blitz, an 89.4 passing grade. No matter how you slice it, I even looked at, depth of passing as well. And the further he was throwing the ball, the better the passing grade became. So no matter how you slice it, Brock Purdy had an incredibly efficient and confident day last week against the Tennessee Titans. If you get that version of Brock Purdy again this week, they're going to score more than the Indianapolis Colts. I agree with you. I think they'll be able to run the ball decently well in this game, but I don't know how much it's going to amount to points, because when you get in the red zone and you become very one-dimensional, I have a hard time feeling that you're going to cash in the way that you need to beat this 49ers team. And so it might be oversimplified to say, hey, if the quarterback plays good, the 49ers are going to play good. But you saw them put up 37 points last week, and Brock Purdy was just feeling it. And if he does that again this week, I even think something like mid-20s when it comes to points is going to be enough. I think the 49ers win this game. I'm going to go with a final score of 24-13. But that's what I'm going with. I'm taking San Francisco in this one.
I'm going to go San Fran as well. Big game for them. I believe they can clinch a playoff spot if they win this game on Monday. And if the Colts lose this game, it's getting pretty close to ending their hopes of coming back and getting into the playoffs here. But I'm going to take the 49ers 28-20. I do think Phillip Rivers will play well on the home turf there. It's just not going to be enough with not enough explosive plays in that offense.
I agree. Maybe it's, another week in the system. He feels a little bit more confident, but even just watching his arm last week, you saw him on that last drive when he really needed to push the football. He just didn't have it, and I don't know if he's going to continue to have it against a Robert Saleh defense. There we go. Every single game, up and down, picked, decided here on the PFF preview show. I got a couple different than you, Dalton. I think maybe like 5 games. 5 games a little bit different. So
let's see.
I got the wiggle room here. How many games are we different in this one?
3, 4, 5. You switched to the Bears, right?
I did switch to the Bears.
All right, 6 games then. 6 games that were different.
All right.
Wow, this is a big week,
movement.
the deciding week. Wow.
If you sweep me, the season might be over. But if I sweep you, we're back in the driver's seat, baby. It probably won't go exactly like that, as it often does not when it comes to these previews that we're picking. But hoping to get a couple of games on you. Obviously, we'll discuss it on next week's preview show, but also the Monday show when we go through every single grade for the top 5 players for every single week as we recap every single game there on that Monday show. Same time. By the way, if you guys don't have that PFF Plus subscription, now you can get one for 30% off. Use that promo code HOLIDAY30. That is your ticket to get that 30% off that PFF Plus subscription. It's not just seeing the grades and the premium stats, which you do get to see, but in the off season, the free agency tools, the draft tools, the fully unlocked mock draft simulator, and then when you get to the summer, it's the fantasy football tools, the betting tools, all that great stuff. So if you don't have one, now's a great time to get one. For everybody who helped produce the show, for Dalton Wasserman, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching another episode of the PFF NFL show. We'll see you guys next week. See you then.